So I can't really film at the same time when I'm doing that and wearing this beekeeper protective suit, but I managed to remove from up there, where you can see all these bees flying, another beehive. I'm not sure how well I did this, but it's gone. There is only a rest that is sticking to the ceiling and to the wall there, and I would think they will now move out and go somewhere else. But probably tomorrow morning, when I check on that, I will find that the repair crew has been on it and they are trying to repair the beehive. But they should do this, not here. They should do this in a different location, because we really need to get this fixed so that we have no animals living in our roof. And finally I decided that we can risk this. Temperatures are cooler. We do have some plywood to close this well, and also got the cleaning liquid for the spray foam gun, so that we can finish this later this week properly, and then hopefully not have this problem anymore. That is, when you have an overhang, a soffit that is not correctly built, then you have all these problems. But okay, it's my first house. I have not done this before, and no master gave me instructions. I had to figure it out myself. And for that, I think it's not too shabby. But one learns. This is how life works. The bees weren't the only problem. We had another rent-free inhabitant of this space, a rat, that was trying to get into the house now. Now, this is some unplanned work, as you might guess, but it's important and it's very urgent that we close this well. So we already put 2 of the plywood pieces up there. We also then need to add the 5 centimeters for the other pieces there in the center, because this is also an invitation, so we need to close this as well. And then at the end we use a bit of foam to close any gap that might still there. There is a mix of bees and wasps that come to visit it because of the smell that the whole thing left. We cleaned it, but of course it's not perfect. So this should be done shortly. We already have this piece, so then we only need to add the other one and then also close the gap there. This is not the perfect soffit as it's supposed to be. It's another invitation, but hopefully for a more pleasant one, like birds. And then that should be good for the time being, until we finally can start to build the actual house. So it appears we managed to finish this. Everything that offers an opportunity is now closed, and we should now not have any visitors up there. Might not look pretty, but it is functional. And after all, this is a temporary building. So once we have the actual house, we can then remove this. And we do have a plan. to put something else here in this place. The place that is currently occupied by this temporary house that does not have any foundation. It sits on those loose cinder blocks, and that was for legal reasons, but the law changed since then, and today that would not have been necessary. So I am here at the edge of what we say is the future garden, and this appears to be some sort of a squash. And ChatGPT that I used just a second ago to identify this tells me this might be winter squash. So it is here at the edge of this garden area. I am using the string trimmer to do some maintenance. I need to continue there. And right next to the Bologna trees, there is this thing. And let me take you in here a little bit. So moving this way, you can see that there's something growing. Two actually. And there is a flower. And apparently after the flower comes the fruit. So this might be an edible plant, and nobody seeded this here. So this is very nice. I've seen it elsewhere also, so now that I know what it is, I will be more careful and let it grow. There is a lot of seed in our soil, I have to say, but the moisture is the problem. So once we solve the moisture problem, all kinds of things will show up that have been dormant for a lot of years. So this is quite interesting. It's not only that wants to grow around here. This has it much easier, but this is a very positive surprise.
Se ve hueco muy grande. No. Se ha quedado hueco muy grande, tío.
So now we have the rack attached to the wall, and now the next step is to put inside the power bar, and then there will be a cable that goes up there, and it will be connected to this panel over there so that we have power in the rack, and then we can install a switch. So we made a little bit more progress. Now we have a switch there, and you can see it is booting up. We have power there at the power bar, and we have a box here that we need to close, the interconnection, and then our cable runs here to the other side. And I hope all the electricians out there are happy that we have this as a distribution panel. So there, this cable, that's that one, is connected. So now we have a working switch in this rack. Door is closed. The device is still updating a little bit. You might be able to see that there. Okay, now apparently it will reboot, and then be fully adopted into the network. And maybe this is the black cable with the red protector on it. Also, the switch at the entrance is now wired instead of wireless. That would be very good. It is very faint, but if you listen closely, you can hear a cat meowing there. It is probably Mr. Cat, but the meowing is different than how it usually is. I'm also doing a little bit of cleanup, because when the rain continues, which is to be expected, then of course all kinds of things will start to grow and bury whatever we have left out here. And it gives me an opportunity to walk a bit and show you those blooming sunhams. They have not grown very tall so far, but they are reproducing, which is what we want. So we have again seeds to put more roots in the ground. Of course the birds will eat quite a bit of the seeds, but some of these things will come back next year. So that is just perfect. And we can irrigate a little bit, and I will do this in a moment also. But of course we need a lot more water. And for that we need to dig these ponds once we have the budget available for those activities. Look who's there. Knut likes this place. It's fresh. And this is probably where he will sleep. So I think I take the opportunity to say a few words about temporary. I use the word temporary here and there and talk about our temporary house, this one here. And I should explain something. So to some people, temporary has a negative connotation. That is not my case. Temporary simply means I am doing something and I don't need it for a long time. It's a temporary thing. I need it now, but in a few months, in a few years, I don't need it anymore. And so I do something temporary. While a permanent thing is the opposite. I do know that I need this for a long time. And I really am sure, and I treat it as an investment, not as an experiment. And I really want this to persist. So for the foreseeable future, for my lifetime, for the next 100, 300 years, put any number, that is then a permanent thing. Or for all eternity. But things have not been created, at least not by humans, that are for all eternity. And who knows how much time that is. So that means I do a lot of temporary things. So it seems. But it's not really my intention to do something temporarily unless it is clearly stated. So the house is temporary, and that is because of some rules. So when we bought this land in 2017, the rule in Andalusia has been that you cannot build a chalet, as they call it, in a rural area. There are three types of soil, or of three types of properties, to put it this way. So you have urban properties that are in a city, in a village. Then you have properties that can become part of an urban area. And then you have rural areas. And back then, the law said you cannot build any structure, any permanent structure, in a rural area. So this, where we are, used to be exclusively a landscape called the Dehesa, used for livestock rearing, a pasture area, a woodland something where you do extensive grazing. And there have been structures from the past, those cortijos, like the one behind these trees. Back in the day, there were no laws about this, but in 2017 there were. And it depends a little bit where. In Spain, for example, in Catalonia, things are a lot more stricter than they are in Andalusia, and Castilla-La Mancha always has been a little bit more relaxed. But in our case, in 2017, the law clearly said you can only have temporary structures in rural land. Maybe some exception, so that you have to be there to protect and care for the animals, but you cannot have a house, a family dwelling, a place where you reside on rural land. If you inhabited something from the past, well, that's fine, but you cannot build something new. And therefore, we build a temporary house. It sits on cinder blocks. Let me show you. Just need to walk a few steps back. So there, it sits on cinder blocks. And you can easily push it away. You can take it away. It has no foundation. And that is on purpose. Because back then, we could have said, yeah, this is a temporary structure, and if you insist, dear authority, we can take it away. No harm done to the land. But then we also got a permit. And the permit allows us to have such a structure here. So we even got a visit by the authorities. It was by the Environmental Protection Agency, and they showed up and they complained about a new roof that they detected. So they use aerial photos and analyze them, and when there is a roof that they have not known about, then they will go and check it out. So they have come there, here, and ask a few questions. And then they left as friends, so nothing was problematic, because we did ask for a permit. We paid our fee for that. And so everything was cool, and of course, we are here to care for animals. So therefore there is a justification. So our house, our temporary house, is connected to some agricultural activity, and therefore there is a reason for being here and have a dwelling. So that is the thing about a temporary thing. Now, the other thing is that I try to explain in comments, in answers to comments, what I basically try to do is iterative development. And iterative is not the same thing as doing something temporarily. It's a deliberate thing. So let's say you want to build a spaceship. You cannot assemble a spaceship today. There is someone who calls a flying object a spaceship, but it's not a spaceship, as we all know from science fiction movies, for example. So it's a rocket. And the rocket might be a step in an iteration of things in order to develop something like a spaceship eventually. Maybe. So you could say the whole spaceship story started with the Wright brothers, who came up with powered flight. So they built something that looks like a modern airplane. But of course it was a very simple airplane, but it had an engine, and it had a propeller, and it was able to fly a little hop. And then, in several iterations, other types of airplanes came out. But it's a precursor to a flying object that can leave Earth's atmosphere and go into space. So you can see, when you look at the distance, at what the aerospace industry does, there is some iterative development going on. People don't know at the beginning what they will end up with. So they build an airplane, then they build rockets, then they build rockets that can be reused so they can come back and land and take off again, just after refueling and maybe some maintenance, and eventually there could be a spaceship. But it's iterative. With every iteration, other things are now possible, and maybe the whole thing will change shape. So the airplane had wings, a rocket does not. The spaceship maybe will have wings, maybe not, but it likely will land horizontally, while a rocket lands vertically, if at all. So you see, this is iterative. And in our case, here it is what we call a farm. It's a farmstead, a homestead, more precisely. It's also an iterative thing. So the trees here behind me, there you can see an iterative thing. So let me turn around and explain this. So this row of trees was planted to have some trees here to provide shade. And they're looking very beautiful, and their leaves are now really, really big. So for comparison, let me put my hand here so you can see how big they are. And this is now beyond the stage of let's try this. It's not an experiment anymore. And you see, I also started to cut away the lower branches to get a clean trunk, and also to allow this wobbler to throw the water to the other side, so that on the other side also something can grow. And there is something that we did not have before. When we were starting out, when we had the idea to do something on this land to improve it. So tucked away here is a sensor. So the thing there is a soil sensor. And there is a cable going up here. And somewhere there is the device that communicates. And there's a radio. And this reports soil data, temperature, conductivity, and most importantly, moisture. So now we have data, and with data one can manage. So right now I know that the soil here at about 10 centimeters depth has 24% of relative moisture. So that means I don't need irrigation, at least not today. And this tree here, that was in bad shape not long ago because of the frost in early May, has not only recovered, but is now thriving. And these trees here, they are great. And as long as I maintain the relative moisture in the soil here at or above 22% relative moisture, that is what I have learned, I can now manage this. So this is now a serious and, in quotation marks, a permanent thing. The trees are. The remaining area here, this is not permanent. So here, temporarily, we allow the grasses to establish themselves, to create biomass, to have roots in the ground, and later we will do something else here, and then we will fight the very same grasses. But this is not happening overnight, so this is quite some time out. Here on this side, things are looking a lot worse. Something is growing, and I continue to cut it down for biomass. And let's see what else we can then establish. Because here there is now a permanent thing going on. A step in an iteration for this piece of land here. So we have the wobblers. They provide all the moisture so that the trees grow very well. And also the wheat and all the other stuff that we don't want, but we want it to improve the soil and make soil. So here now we have a process. So it's an iterative step in the development of a garden area, but it's not a garden yet. And there will be a few other steps, I guess, but I don't know yet which ones they will be, to turn this eventually into a garden. But I want my spaceship, I want my garden. So I have something going on here that is basically sorted out, which is the trees. And it works, and it will provide the shade. So far I know shade is important. But what else we need to do here, I am not sure. So temporarily, as an iterative step, I water the weeds and cut them for biomass instead of green manure. It's the same thing, but the seed is already there and nature provides it for free. The only thing I have to provide myself is water. And as this coincides with the need for water by the trees, I also get the benefit of this. So here there is a win-win situation based on a system that, we could establish by learning, by way of doing an experiment. Let's try this. And there's even more, where you can see this this way of thinking. So here we have food, and nobody planted it. So what you see here, this is some sort of a pumpkin, and it is making flowers. And also, if I stick the camera in there, and I filmed this before, so there are pumpkins in the making, and there are certainly more in other areas. So nobody put this here. But now that I know that this wants to grow here, I will make sure that once we harvested and ate those pumpkins, they look like the store-bought one, winter squash. We will then place the seeds for this all around here, so that this becomes a pumpkin patch. Pumpkins supposedly need a lot of nutrients, so it's quite interesting that this is able to grow here. And I actually saw this plant elsewhere, but I cut it away, thinking that it was something else. Now, of course, I will look out for it. And it seems to work here, despite what I have in my head, that it requires a lot of nutrients. Maybe we do have a lot of nutrients, and we don't know it. At least this plant is happy. So now this showed up, and because of that, we will now make this a thing. So this is going to be a pumpkin patch. And the aloe vera hopefully will not mind. So maybe this serves a little bit as an explanation of how I think and why things are in a certain way. Eventually, it will all be nice. But the way to this state of all being nice is full of turns, going back, trying something again, trying something different. And that is what iterative development is all about. It's not a straight line.